I remember one day when actually a friend actually told me, hey, did you see that? Google actually released a competing product. Google was just releasing Google Forms. And I was like, okay, how am I going to compete with Google? Like this big company coming into this little market. And the solution was automation and delegation. So I tried to automate everything as much as possible.
Welcome to SaaS That App, building B2B Web Applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I am your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in. Hey everyone, welcome back to SaaS That App. It's Justin here. Aaron is still out playing hooky, so I've only got Wilbur, the emotional support pitbull, riding shotgun for today's episode. Today we're hearing from Aytekin Tank, a quiet giant in the SaaS space who bootstrapped Jotform from a small drag-and-drop form builder into a massive SaaS ecosystem with tens of millions of users. He's the founder of Jotform, he's the author of Automate Your Busy Work, he's the host of the AI Agents podcast, and an innovator in the agentic AI space. He also knows a thing or two about scaling companies, bootstrapping, and leveraging AI in this new era. Aytekin, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Justin, thank you for having me. Thanks for the great intro. Like, I don't know if anything else left to me to talk about. Yeah.
No, I'm sure it's going to be an engaging conversation. You've done a lot of stuff, so I'm very excited to dig into it. Just to kind of kick us off, can you let anyone who's not familiar with you know a little bit about your background, your story, and how Jotform came to be, and then how that put you where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So right out of college, I started working for this media company. I worked there for 5 years in New York, and we had like over 100 websites. And I was a developer. I studied computer science. And one of my duties was to help our editors with like various things. And like they always needed like forms, contact forms, payment forms. Like they would run contests. We would create forms to apply for the contest, like so many different kinds of forms. And I kind of hated that. Like I hated creative forms. It was boring, like just writing HTML and building the same thing. And I just tried to find a product that could actually like automate the task, like just use a product to create the forms. But I couldn't find one. Like there was SurveyMonkey, but that was like mostly focused on surveys. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to quit my job and I'm just going to build this product. And that was like almost 20 years ago. It was actually 20 years ago. And I quit my job and I started working on Jotform, and the rest is history. Now we have like 35 million users.
That's absolutely incredible. That kind of user count is just amazing. So you obviously built something that was really highly in demand. What inspired you, or like how did you take the initial leap to jump out of a steady job into doing your own thing without a certain income? And like that's quite the plunge to take.
I think I always had that passion in me to do my own thing, like just to have that freedom, to have the independence to build my own products. Even when I was in college, I had like released some open source products, and like I've seen them like become successful. Some of them, this was long time before Facebook. Like for example, I had a product called Profile Manager. People could install that into their websites, and then like people could register and do things like that. So I did that for a student organization, and then I just released it as an open source product. And then suddenly I've seen like so many people were using it. Like I caught that bug when I released that open source product. I think that was the initial reason, but I didn't actually believe in myself. Like I was like, I don't know if I could do that. I'm just going to find a job. And I actually found a great job, like just really loved it. But the thing is, like, I was still like in my mind that one day I'm going to just start my business. And like, I just started reading all these blogs and like books and just kept learning more. And I think that's over time, at some point, it just became like, okay, it's 5 years. When am I going to like start it? And I have the idea. And I also had a co-founder, actually. That's another story. We have been talking to each other, like two Turkish guys in New York. We have been talking to each other about like starting our own business. And he was like 10 years older than me. And then like we were just really excited about our startup. And right about like we were just going to do it, he came to me and he told me, okay, I was talking to my accountant and he said like 50-50 is not a good idea. Like just, it's a bad idea. So you should do like 51-49. And since I'm more experienced, since I'm quitting like a larger company, his salary was much higher than me. Like, since I'm older, I should be the 51. But I took that as a vote of no confidence. Like, we knew each other for a long time. And I thought that, okay, I didn't want to do it. And that was like a deal breaker. And I think he just got married also. Like, he was also stressed about like quitting his job and starting a business. So at the end, I started by myself. Like, even though I was planning to be a co-founder, I just started by myself. And over time, I was happy that I was the single founder, because like I heard like so many stories about these startups breaking down because like the founders, they don't get along, or like they get along in the beginning, but then over time, one of them is actually getting really good, like just developing, and other one is maybe costing, like doesn't grow as much. And then suddenly there is this like feeling of like someone is actually pulling harder, things like just, I've seen so many different kinds of problems with that. So I was so glad, but it was harder because psychologically it's really hard to be a single founder. But what I found was like, as soon as I hired my first employee, and that was like 1 year after I started working on Jotform, as soon as I hired my employee, and that employee was kind of like my co-founder. Like, we would actually talk about everything. In the early days, we had that kind of environment where we would actually discuss everything, and we would had that really friendly environment that actually supported me. Instead of having a co-founder, I was able to actually have the same feeling by just giving our employees more, empowering them, and just giving them more voice in our startup. And that's how it went. Yeah.
No, I love that. So you kind of took an early employee and told them more information than maybe you did subsequently to employees at the same level, but then that they kind of became your sounding board and they helped you noodle through problems. That's interesting. I've always had a co-founder when I've worked on something, but our first business that we ran, we also had our first employee who became basically a co-founder of the business, even though it wasn't on the cap table. So that's fascinating. We had Joe Kowalski on the podcast a few episodes back. It's been a couple months, but he ended up in a situation where he had some family friends and stuff, and he ended up with a bunch of freeloaders on his cap table, which made a whole bunch of problems for him later on. And he made a bunch of people he wasn't really on great terms with really rich when he exited. So he has a really interesting story about that. And I guess I don't necessarily agree with the 50-50 being bad. I do think you have to do contingency planning, but I think it's really interesting that was like such a big like vote of no confidence for you. And then that gave you like the confidence somehow just to be like, well, I'll do it on my own.
Yeah, I think it was more like I wasn't probably prepared for it. And the way he proposed it, I felt like it was like take or leave it. Mm-hmm. And that actually also, maybe he could have approached it much in a different way. Maybe I could have accepted that. I don't know. But the way that was introduced, that probably didn't excite me. So I don't know what would happen, but he was more into like doing like consulting services, and I was more about like building a product. I had Jotform in mind. Like, I knew like what I wanted to do. And I think that was also another problem that we had, but we weren't actually, because we were so friendly. We were always spending time and excited about startup. We weren't really focused on that. We thought that we could fix it. But this actually gave me like the freedom to just work on Jotform, like just not do other stuff that we were planning to do in the early days. So that also gave me more speed by just having a single focus. And for 8 months, I just worked on Form's first version and I released it. And that was like, okay, here I am. Can I make this successful, right? And I thought that the way that I could make it successful is if I give it for free and if I make it as easy as possible to use it. And if I can see that lots of people actually use this product, if I can prove that, then I can actually continue working on it. I already had savings, so I wasn't worried about like just short term. So I worked on the first version for 8 months and then I released the free version. And I think that was kind of what I learned releasing all these like open source products, free products, that it was easy to market a free product. And the way to develop a product is get feedback. If you cannot get feedback, you cannot improve a product. I mentor a lot of startup founders. And one of the issues is like, if you're trying to do an enterprise product, it's just so hard because you only have like 1 or 2 customers. And like, it's really hard to like just get feedback from them, like just learn from them. And some of them don't even have that. But the more users you have, the more feedback you get. And that's what I actually learned during that time with the open source products, with my other products. And I decided that if I release this for free, and that if I could do like PR and try to get people to use this product, and if I can get a lot of people to use it, then I can turn this into a successful SaaS business, which the term actually didn't exist back then. SaaS term didn't exist. But I also knew when I released those open source products, when I tried to sell like premium version, selling something one time didn't work, but the subscription actually was a better business model. So I could also see that business aspect of that as well.
How did you get from having a free version with a lot of, like, you gave this away for free and there was interest in it and you had users who were giving you feedback, you were making your product better? How did you rip off the Band-Aid and introduce that premium tier where you started asking people to get their wallets?
So one of the things I did was in the early days, we had this public forum and people who would try the product, they would write there and I would like instantly, whatever they ask, like I would actually deliver that. So for free, they were getting a product and then they would actually, whatever bug reports or feature requests they were making, I would just instantly in a day, like just implement them and give them. So that also created that culture of giving feedback. So when I released the product in February 2006, and then in September 2006, I actually hired my first employee. And then I told him that, okay, I'm going to continue like supporting existing users, like constantly getting feedback. And okay, you're going to work on this new premium version of the product. And it's going to have features like PayPal integration for taking payments in your forms, all kinds of additional features so that we can ask them to upgrade to the premium version. And then March 2007, like a little over a year after I released the free version, we released the premium version. And I remember like when we released the premium version, like we had like 15,000 users at that time. So it wasn't much. Like we were getting only a few hundred signups, like just a week or a month. I don't know, like we had like 15,000 people using the product. And they were using it for free. So I made that announcement and I was really anxious, like, what's going to happen? Are we going to get like total silence, no one buying it? Or are we going to get people to buy it? So we made it early in the morning. And then like a little bit later, I think it was like very early in the US time. So I think it was like a university from Spain actually bought the premium version. That was the first one. And then like half an hour later, one from the UK. And then we started getting like the East Coast of the US. So I knew that, okay, this is like, that's the day when I knew that this was going to be a successful product, because as soon as we released the premium version, as soon as we sent that announcement email, we started getting those upgrades because people were getting value. And the product was only like $9 per month at that time. Still, Jotform has a free version, fully functional free version, and like low monthly prices still. But it was even lower back then. So that proved that the business was going to be successful.
Interesting. I guess there's kind of assumed knowledge now that freemium is probably not the right way to do most SaaSes. Have you had challenges with running freemium? Has it always been a good choice for you just because of how you designed this thing to launch?
Over the years, we have done a lot of experiments, and a lot of people don't love freemium, but I really believe in freemium. And like all the tests we have done actually showed that it was the right approach, at least for our product. So for example, when we actually lowered our limits so much that like people had to upgrade, for example, one of the most popular features of Jotform is like payment forms, right? And on the free version, you can get like 10 payments per month. And we actually lowered that limit to 3 per month. And then when we did that test, suddenly we have seen like so many upgrades and great things happening. And then like over a few months, we looked at the data and then we discovered that, okay, this is very successful. We did the right thing. And we increased upgrades, right? But a year later, I was just like looking at the data, like we have all these dashboards that we built ourselves. And I was like looking at the dashboard, a chart for like payment users. And the chart was like constantly going up. And then suddenly it straightened out. Like it wasn't going up anymore. It turned into a straight line. And then when I looked at what happened there, like when we lowered the limit, it turned out that we actually lost those people. Like even though we got those temporary upgrades, even though things were looking good in the early days, and maybe we were even like earning more by just getting more people to upgrade. But over time, less and less people were actually trying the product, using the product. And that resulted in stop in the growth. And we have tested this experiment many times and always the same results, because free kind of builds goodwill, and also free allows people to use the product and just lowers that barrier to use the product. And if the product is good, if it's easy to use, giving them that opportunity to experience the quality of the product is actually great, so that like you can then charge them further. For example, when I look at products like Canva, even my kids, like their teachers give them homework, like, okay, go to Canva and do this, right? And think about this, like this wouldn't be possible if they didn't have a free version. And then all these people who are just like doing like easy, quick things in Canva, basically turning into paid users over time if they have big usage. And if they have low usage, they're still promoting the product, especially in the Jotform's case. For example, when I create a form, what do I do with that form? I will actually share it with other people. I might embed on my website. And if I embed on my website, actually, if I'm using the free version, there's like this small powered by Jotform text at the bottom. Or if I'm just sending the link to someone, they're actually looking at the link and they say, okay, what's Jotform? And then they discover Jotform. And that's like, it's free, that increases that virality. And that was also one of the reasons for our growth.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Tom Hunt on a few episodes back, and his entire episode was about product-led growth. And the things you're talking about are exactly that, which is just like every free user on Jotform is free advertising, and it helps my domain ranking because now there's links to me from everywhere and SEO and on and on. So I love hearing that. So what did you end up doing with dropping from 10 transactions down to 3? Did you come back up to 10 and then your graph recuperated, or how did that resolve? Exactly that?
Exactly. We just restored back. And then the graph continued to grow after that. And we processed like billions and billions of dollars of payments. And one of the reasons people like use Jotform a lot is because like most of the services, they will actually take percentage from the payments, but we don't do that just by using. So that actually means that a lot of people also use it because of that. Like just, they don't lose a percentage from their payments. And then when they use Jotform forms. And that's one of the reasons of using products like Shopify or other like products. They just use Jotform and integrate with all these different payment gateways, and it works for them. Yeah, and the free version is enough for many of the users, many small businesses.
I love that. And it's attractive to me as someone who runs small businesses. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's part of my subscription. They're not tacking on a fee for, the better that I do. And I like that as a founder. So awesome. Real quick, this episode is brought to you by Delta Systems, which is what Aaron and I do when we're not talking through microphones to you, the people of the internet. We've got a really, really great software team here, and we love to work with cool people on cool projects. So if that sounds like you and you've got a problem or you're in some kind of a jam, go to deltasystems.com, grab a time with us. We can beat up on your problem together, and if there's a fit there, amazing, we'll help you out. So deltasystems.com, grab an appointment, and hey, maybe we can work together. Well, I could talk to you about the early days of Jotform and all of your scaling and tribulations for hours, and maybe we'll come back to some of that. I did want to give you a chance to tell people a little bit about Automate Your Busy Work. What was your inspiration for starting that book? And I actually haven't read that book yet. I added it to my list after I found out we were going to be talking. But yeah, tell me a little bit about what inspired you to write a book and your thesis.
Yeah, in the early days, I assumed that we are in this like form building market. Like we were helping people create forms, right? That's what I assumed. But over time, like what we discovered was we were actually helping people automate their businesses or organizations. If they are doing something like manually, like also like healthcare, education, nonprofits, like these are like some of our top customers. And when they use Jotform, they are basically automating that communication between them, other people. Let's say you're in education, you're an administrator, you're trying to do something, right? If everybody is like just sending you emails, right? Just you have to deal with them one by one. But if you can create a form with validations, required questions, like conditions, like just very structured form, you can actually take all the information you need easily and just not spend time like with the communication, constant back and forth. So basically, people have been using Jotform for automation. That's what we discovered. And another thing we discovered was like forms were kind of like the first step in a journey for many things. Like people are registering for something, filling out a form, but it doesn't end there, right? Those people, they get an email, maybe they get approved, maybe they need to make a payment. There are a lot of things that needs to happen. After that, maybe they need to sign a document. So we discovered that if we can help people with the next steps on their journey, automate the workflows, that if we can build those tools, people will use them because they are already here building their forms. Why not just set up their approvals, workflows, e-signatures, if they need to build a app, mobile app, and put their forms on it, why don't we just allow them to like do all those things so that we can actually complete their workflows and just make it part of the product and make the product more useful for them. So I think I learned a lot about automation by just trying to help people automate their business. And I also, as a founder, struggled with automation. I remember in the early days, especially like I remember one day when actually a friend actually told me, hey, did you see that? Google actually released a competing product. Google was just releasing Google Forms. And I was like, okay, so how am I going to compete with Google, like this big company coming into this little market and competing with us and even putting like Google Forms in Google Drive at the very visible places. And at that time, we were around like probably like 5 to 10 employees. And I was like constantly doing all kinds of things. Like I was doing like accounting, legal, HR, ordering supplies for the office, like just I would do everything. I would actually like spend so much time doing support. Like we didn't actually have a customer support employee for probably first 5 years. Like I was just doing the whole support. And I really believed in that because like I was just learning so much from like observing so much from users. But at this point, like I wasn't really spending my time appropriately. So, okay, I decided that if I'm going to be able to beat Google, if I'm going to be successful, then I needed to change something. And the solution was automation and delegation. So I tried to automate everything as much as possible, use our own product as much as possible to automate my own business. And then I started delegating more. Like just, I went to like Upwork. At that time, it was like Odesk, and just hire like this, like 5 remote support people and just gave like most of my support work to them, for example, as delegation. For the automation part, like just many of the things that we did, like especially with the product development, like continuous integration and deployment, things like that. Also automations that started at that time and just helped us become much more productive. So over time, I started by helping myself with automation and then helping our customers with automation, helping our team with the automation. And I felt like just I learned so much about automation that I could actually write a book about it. And that's what I did. One aspect of the story is it took me like years to write the book. And right, I was about to release the book. Actually, the AI blew up, right? At that time, around that time. And my book wasn't about AI. So that was one problem. So the book is more about like the automation, the ideas, the principles of automation. Even the example, like as soon as I released the book, the examples in it were old. Like it was in this new AI era. I think it was kind of old, but I feel like the ideas still apply. So for example, I talk about the automation flywheel where let's say you're a small business owner, like already under so much busy work. How do you actually use automation? How do you decide like what to automate? How do you learn which automation tools to learn? So in the book, I describe this automation flywheel. So you start by basically putting down your workflows. Like it could be on paper, like you could just draw your flow charts of your work, or you could just use one of the products available. And then once you actually look at your workflows, and you shouldn't just look at your workflows as like basic automation, basic things that you can automate, but just look at all the things that you do. For example, if you are waiting for an email from a customer, that's also part of that workflow. So the workflows, they don't have to be just very simple things. And then one of the things I talk about is like how you should really look at how you spend your time. And for example, you could do like a time audit. Like if you create a spreadsheet and then just put how you spend every day, like just like I spend my time with this and that. And at the end of the week, if you add them up, if you do this time audit, you discover that how you're spending your time. And then you could just ask yourself, like, am I really happy with this? Like, do I actually enjoy spending my time with these things? So I actually recommend picking things that you don't enjoy to automate first. Because usually those things are pretty boring. That's probably why you don't enjoy them, because it's just became like doing them all the time. It's just boring and it doesn't excite you. It doesn't just take your time. It's also taking down your energy, taking down your motivation. But if you can actually automate those things and spend more time on things that really matter to you, you'll have more time to spend with those things. So those early wins will allow you to like automate more and more things and create this flywheel of basically instead of doing things, you are turning them into your systems. And then over time, you can actually improve these systems and you're basically turning into a manager of your systems as opposed to doing those things. And then you are spending more of your time improving your systems and monitoring them and then improving them as opposed to like getting lost in busy work.
Yeah, I love the idea that the stuff on your calendar that you hate doing, even if it's not time consuming, it just drains your energy and it creates friction in your life. And if you're fired up about everything that's on your agenda, you jump out of bed in the morning. Whereas if you know that you have that one thing that you hate doing all day, it can really take away from the things you do enjoy doing just because it drains your willpower, it drains your energy.
I try to apply the same principles to my work as well. For example, I'm really excited about AI in the last 2 years. I just stopped doing anything else. I'm actually leading our teams to build our AI products. And we first built this AI agents 2 years ago, again, of 2023. That one thing we do at Jotform is we do these hack weeks, these hackathons, but we don't want people to sleep at the office. We just say, okay, just do your regular hours, 9 to 5, but we turn this hackathon into a week-long hackathon. So one of the hack weeks we did was about AI. And some of our teams came up with this idea of what if people could fill out forms with AI, right? The idea actually sounded great to us at that time. What if you could just call a number and fill out a form on the phone, right? What if you could just use voice or just by just talking to a chatbot? What if when you go to a website, a chatbot can take your information for you as opposed to this boring form? What if you could just turn it into a conversation? So we were really excited about this idea. We started our first AI project at that time, and then we had a few teams, and I started working on this. And then we released this to a small number of Jotform users as an MVP product. And we discovered something that 90% of the users wasn't using this product as we intended, just to, get people to fill out forms conversationally. We discovered that because this product also allowed you to kind of answer questions, not just fill out forms, but also provide answers, 90% people were really excited about the product. They were really using it on their website, putting the chatbot on their website. But what we discovered was people were actually using it as a customer service chatbot. And that's why we decided to pivot. And since people are looking for a good AI solution, AI agent that can actually conversationally help their users and not just be a chatbot, not just answer support questions, but be able to use tools. For example, if they need to take appointments, when you call a number or when you're talking to a chatbot on a website, it can also take your order or it can make an appointment for you. So that's where we basically pivoted. And we released that product early this year and it has been pretty successful. So far, we have 18,000 active users and it has many different channels. We have the Gmail agent. Basically, it can actually create drafts for your answers. So if you are providing support on your Gmail, it can create drafts. You can put it on your Instagram. Instagram agent can actually create these answer the DMs coming from people automatically. So we had all these different channels like WhatsApp, Shopify. You can put it on WordPress and just all these different kind of agents. So that was really great. But there was one way we were really able to improve the product. We released this in February 2025, early this year. And when we released it, we thought that, okay, why don't we just also provide support at Jotform using our own product? Right. And then that's exactly what we did. We started put this chatbot on our product. We even started putting in our support system so that our human support also answers the question, but then AI can provide the early answers as well. And then we discovered that we weren't actually doing well. The resolution rate was only 25% when we released this support chatbot. And then, we decided, if this product is going to be useful to our customers, we need to make it also useful to us. We need to dog feed our own product. And if it's failing for us, it's probably failing for our users as well. So we start asking the question, why it was failing, why it was like only like 25%. And one of the things that having this support actually was interesting because we have around like 200 support employees at Jotform. And then our support load was actually getting lower because many people were getting actual answers from the chatbot, the AI agent. So we were able to actually move like 20 people from our support team to dedicate them to review our support agents' conversations. And we started doing this like daily. Every day, they would actually read those like usually like 3,000 conversations happening between our customers and our users and our AI agents. And then they would actually say, is it resolved or not? Yes or no. So they would evaluate that conversation. They would say yes or no. If they say no, it wasn't resolved, they would actually choose like a category of the reason for the failure. They will provide the description. And then we started actually turning those into like reports. And then based on those categories, we actually sent those problems to the teams that are responsible for them. So over 3 months, we were able to take that 25% resolution rate and to increase it to 75%.
Let me just put a bow on that because I love this. So you rolled out something that wasn't really blowing your hair back as much as you wanted it to, but it did create 25% worth of space. So you took the 25% of space that it gave you, and you took the people who were previously having to do that 25% of work, and you put them to work on making the tool better. And then since they were not having to do the actual work and the AI was doing the work, you were able to use all their energy and efforts to make that 25% rate go up to 75% rate.
Yeah, but the 5% rate is actually the resolution rate of our AI customer support. So we had these 20 support employees who were just reading all these conversations and then labeling the conversations as resolved or not resolved, and then putting all these information about like why it was failing. And then our product teams, they were all responsible for different category of problems. So they would actually take a problem and they would work on that problem over that 3 months.
Do you have like an example of like one of those problems and like how that got resolved?
For example, someone was saying like, I don't receive my emails. People fill out my forms, but I don't get the emails, right? So the AI agent would say, okay, do this, check that. But when we looked at our human support actually had the tools. They could actually take the email address of the user, put it in a tool, and then query and find out like if there is a problem with that email, if it's like in our bounce list, if that person actually like entered their email address incorrectly. Like they could check like many things like that using the admin tools, support tools we had. But the AI agent didn't have that. So one of the things we did was our AI agent actually has the functionality of using tools. We actually gave those tools to our AI agent. Basically now our AI agent could actually use tools to check if this user is in a bounce list, if they unsubscribed from Jotform, if we received an error message from when we sent the email, maybe the inbox was full, or maybe because they thought that we were spam or something, right? So the exact thing our human support were doing, our AI just started doing. So once we did that, they probably gave us like 1 or 2 point increase in the resolution rate. So when we went from 25% to 75%, the 50% resolution rate difference mainly came from like 3 different things. One of them was our user guides were not good enough. Like our human support team, they already knew the product, so they didn't need to check the user guides. But our AI agents, AI was actually using our user guides to answer people, and our user guys were missing so many information. They had like old information. They were outdated in some cases. So basically, there were people who were like constantly updating our user guides to make sure that AI agent knows that. So this also had the side effect of improving our documentation. So that was probably like 10%. Another big problem was, so basically with AI, when you have like big database, like when you have like big knowledge base, you cannot put it in the tokens. Like if it's too large, you cannot just add it to your prompt. So what you do is like you use a RAG system, retrieved augmented retrieval. So basically retrieved augmented generation, I think. So basically what you do is like you query a database, and then just basically a vector database tells you that, okay, the information you're looking for is in these sections. And it just like gives that as a part of the prompt to AI. So for example, if we are using OpenAI, when we actually asking for the answer for this user, we are also adding our user guide, but we only want to include the user guides that are related to that specific question, right? We don't want to send our whole user guide because it's just too large. So basically that database wasn't performing well. That RAG system and the embedding model wasn't doing well. So we basically improved the embedding model we used there. And that also gave us like additional 10% increase. And the tool usage was also something big that made a difference. Basically, our AI agent had access to the same tools that our own human support had. That also made a big difference. So by just like continuously iterating, like daily iterations, daily discovery of all these problems, and then like just the teams that we had about 15 teams that were actually working on different areas at the same time. So over 3 months, 15 teams working on different areas and improving the AI agent. We were able to go to 75%. But the great thing was like when we actually improved our own system, our own support AI agent, we were also improving our own product. So that also made our product much better over time. So probably why we have like 18,000 active users on Jotform AI just now, because it's working really well. It's just really set up because like if you want to put like this chatbot on your website, it just goes and crawls itself and learns everything on your website and it can just answer questions. And I think the great thing about AI agents is that it can scale much easier. Like this festival, they were receiving so much traffic and people were constantly asking these questions. When they used our AI agent, when they used our chatbot on their website, they were getting all these questions and the chatbot was able to like instantly answer them and just be able to scale. And then they would just look at all these different conversations. And then if there is any question that are not answered well, they would also add to the knowledge base and improve it. And what happens is that even if the knowledge is on your website, people are kind of lazy. They don't want to like just find the information on your own website. They just want to go to the chatbot and then ask their question there and get an answer quickly. They prefer that. When you're going to a festival, maybe you're driving, maybe you're outside, like you don't have time to like try to read all the information on a website. But if you can just call a number, talk to an AI, or if you can just talk to a chatbot, that's just much easier.
Another kind of piece of this trend of like, it used to be you received a newspaper and someone else decided everything that you were going to be interested in. And then we moved to RSS feeds where it's like, I will tell you what I'm interested in. And then when it's ready, send it to me. And it's kind of like an information on demand model, which is like, I'm not going to read your whole website to figure something out. I'm going to go to your website when I have a specific question and ask for what I want. And then I'm going to get exactly that answer back out. And so I love that. I love the idea of taking whatever AI does for you initially as a starting place and having your entire team work on like, why is AI failing and how do we enhance its performance? How do we, our knowledge base isn't as good as it should be. So the AI is not a human and it has to go off this knowledge base that we have. So we need to make sure that's in a better condition and better shape.
So we are now working on our second AI product. And one thing I discovered was like, I learned so much about building products over the years. And what I discovered was that the rules don't apply to AI products. When you're building AI products, all the playbooks, all the rules you learned, they go out of the window. Like they don't work anymore. And the reason is like most of the time there is no UI. There's just conversation most of the time. People are writing a prompt. People are talking to a chatbot. And all the UI based like improving the user experience, all the rules that we learned over the years don't apply here. So what we learned is basically doing these evals, doing these reviews of the AI and what AI does. In the AI agents product, basically we were just reviewing all these conversations and labeling them. So the next project we are working on, we call it Jotform AI. Basically, being able to use AI everywhere on Jotform. And Notion actually released something similar, like Notion AI is similar. Like everything you do on Notion, you can actually do it by just talking to their AI. And it's like wherever you are, it's a chatbot on the right side, or just you can just go to this Notion AI homepage. So Jotform AI is kind of similar. And what we learned is that we are using the same idea here. Basically, because like we saved so much resources from support, we were able to move like 30 support employees to do the reviews, to do the evals for us. And what these employees do is basically they are looking at all these conversations between AI and looking at what Jotform AI does for them. Like, for example, someone is asking, okay, create me this contact form, right? And then they are basically evaluating like what the user asked and then what we produced. So basically, instead of the conversations, they are actually reviewing what the AI has done. Not just what AI answered, but what the AI has actually performed on Jotform. And then they are labeling them. And every morning when a product team, we have about 20 teams working on this project. When a product team actually comes to the office at 9 a.m., they actually receive this automated report that basically all the conversations, like we cannot review all the conversations, but usually like we review around like 200 of them. So yesterday, okay, we reviewed 200 conversations and what AI has done. And then we are clustering, the AI is also clustering all these like different conversations. And then the report actually say, here's the top problem from yesterday. Here's the second most important. And then the team is actually working on that problem that day. So basically this is like this iterative approach to improving the product. And this is like daily sprints as opposed to like doing like monthly or weekly sprints. Like basically they are doing daily sprints. Humans are reviewing what the AI has done, where the AI has failed. And then our developers are basically fixing those mistakes and then improving the product iteratively. And eventually our goal is like not just to fix the problems, but also, okay, here's the people expected to do, but we don't have that feature at Jotform. So let's just build that feature as well in Jotform because we are able to look at like the top requests. Basically, it's going to help us with the product discovery as well, not just product improvements.
Well, you just brought us full circle back towards having the free users giving you all the feedback that you needed to make the product work. And then now you have your AI chats, which are bringing you the feedback that you need to make it. It's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know it is like 9 o'clock in Turkey where you're calling in from. Thanks for meeting with me on US time zones. I really appreciate it. Right at the end of our time here, where can folks connect with you? Where would you like to send folks if they want to get in touch?
So my website is aytekintank.com, my first name, last name.com. They can find the first chapter of my book for free, as you would expect. They can just read that and we don't even ask for email address or anything. And they can find my articles I write for like Forbes, Entrepreneur, different places. They can find my writings there as well if they're interested. And they can also talk to me, my chatbot there as well if they have any questions. My chatbot is actually basically trained by my books and my writing and all the knowledge I added, and it can answer questions if they have any.
That's so on brand. I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Aytekin. It's been an absolute pleasure. Folks, thanks for cruising along with us. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. Like, subscribe, reach out to Delta if you want a software project done. But yeah, thanks so much. And very soon, Aaron will be back and you won't have to endure only me. So thanks, Aytekin. Thanks, everyone, for listening. See you next time.
Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.